Hey, Max, it's been a while.
It's been a long time, Rick. Good to be back.
Yeah, we've been a little busy.
Yeah, it's been a great summer with Live at 5 and all the live music we were able to squeeze in this year. And so, yeah, it was kind of nice to see things starting to slow down a little bit from event kind of stuff in the fall and catching up on everything, getting ready for winter. And we looked at each other and said, man, we haven't got together and done this in like months. Let's do this.
Let's do it.
So, even if it's just you and I and maybe my mom that watches
it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's a Monday. We got a chance to drink some beer.
Yeah, and, got the Mexican lager going.
Yeah,
got the Mexican lager T-shirt on. Didn't plan that, but happened to work out good. And chasing it with a little
a little whiskey, Glenlivet.
This is really nice.
It takes it's Scotch whiskey, but it takes that peat sort of smoky taste and just smooths it out because it's been aged in the rum barrels.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, very tasty.
Nice find.
Yeah, but we kind of the last time we talked, we were kind of announcing some stuff we were doing for the summer. So and that partnership.
I think maybe the last time was with Sean. Wasn't it?
We had a sit down with Sean and talked about the things we were going to do, sort of some joint collaboration with the pub station and 2 spots for bands to hit in Montana. And we kind of started up in June. I know you have the list there.
Yeah, earliest ones were, I guess, actually back in April with Emily Nenny and Driftwood and Fruition and some of those bands that you and I had honestly never heard of, but were very well-known musicians.
They were announced in ticket sales, but they were there in June.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. June was the first time we actually started doing the shows. Yep, that's right. Looking at the wrong calendar there. But yeah, it was, definitely been a learning experience. I think we learned a lot from Sean and his whole team over at the pub station. They obviously have been doing this for a long time and been doing it with, large acts throughout the year. And it was a good experience. I think some of the things that we learned right off the top were just because someone is a successful and talented musician doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to equate into ticket sales, at least in our home market.
Right. And I think we saw a little bit of that over the years when we would have, say, a band from Seattle crossing through and professional musicians, touring bands, very talented. And we'd have them once in a while at different times. And you wouldn't get a big turnout just because people did not know them.
Yep.
And it's somewhat understandable, but I think it would be kind of nice if it was like, there would be a segment of the community that would be like, man, always know I can catch some really good live music and sort of maybe get turned on to some new artists down there. But it's just, it seems like it's a little more, they're not as willing, our community is just not, at this point, the makeup of our community is not one that wants to sort of risk their time and energy on bands that they don't know.
I think that you hit the nail on the head. I think some of it's time and energy. Some of it's probably money because, let's face it, a lot of people are running tighter budgets than they used to. And so they don't go out every week. They go out twice a month or once a month. And so whether it's going out to see someone that they've actually heard of and they're going to spend $100 for a ticket and go over to Missoula to the Kettle House Amphitheater, or whether it's going to something at Lewis and Clark or down at 10 Mile, they only have so many of those within a month.
Right.
And I think we were super excited to have more and more bigger and bigger acts come through. And I think we learned that there's a kind of a saturation point.
Yeah, there's a ceiling, I think, on the number of acts you can have at any given time in this market. And so we had several in June, July, August.
Think, looking at what we did in June, we had some of the folks that we've had through on a regular basis and did well with, like Igor and the Red Elvises. But we had some new people that are very talented: Emily Nenny, Brett Denon, Emily Nenny, and then Brett Denon. I'll never forget the Brett Denon show. hadn't really heard of him, but once I listened to his most popular song on Spotify, I was like, oh, I've definitely heard this song. And so we were excited, but unfortunately, I think that was one of the ones that, we took a pretty good financial hit, and we've done that on several of them this year. But it wasn't nothing to do with the fact that they're not great artists. It's just that we assumed that we would get maybe 150 people to come out and buy a ticket, and we get like 45 or 50.
Right.
And the interesting thing was the 45 or 50 people that were there, they were so excited that we got this guy here.
Right.
It's like, how did you get this guy? It's like, well, we're doing a lot of work with the pub station, and they loved the show, and they were looking around like, why aren't more people here? And we were looking around like, why aren't more people here? But you do have to learn from experiences, and
right.
I think we've really learned that number one, we want to lessen the amount of times that our regular customers are inconvenienced by our support of live music.
Right.
And I think we ran into that several times where especially as you get these bigger and bigger artists, and you do most of the contracts, so you know better than anybody, but all of a sudden they start asking for things that we've never had to deal with before, like closed sound checks. Like they don't want anybody, if you're not an employee, that you can't be in there when they do their sound check. Well, then that means we had to close the brewery tap room 6 o'clock, an hour before even the doors open. And people that came there after work to have a beer, it's kind of like, sorry, we need to ask you to leave. And I hate doing that.
Right. We did open up the patio when the weather permitting, and then we had the game room. We sort of did some shuffling so that they could
figure out a way to continue to stay open for those folks that just came down to have a beer.
Right, and a pizza. Yeah. And just trying to cater to both group's desires.
Yep. And I think over the process of doing that, I'm sure that a lot of people that came to one of the biggest shows, and we had 4 or 5 really big shows. I mean, like the Built to Spill show outside that sold out, and the Clintons obviously sold out. And so if you were at one of those, you look around and be like, oh, these guys got to be killing it.
Right.
Every time they do live music, it's like this. And we're like, no, we wish it was.
Yeah,
but
it'd be nice.
It's just not that way.
Yeah.
So I think after, learning those lessons, and some of them were painful financial lessons because, some of these bands, they can certainly justify a higher fee, but it becomes a risk that we have.
Well, I have a feeling, I don't have a great depth of experience in it, but it just seems to me that, bands are not making much off of their downloads, nowadays. It's not like selling an album or selling a CD or what.
Yeah.
So they are making more at their live show appearances. Not only are they asking for more of a guarantee, then they are, they're also making more when they sell the merch at those shows.
Yep. And the merch they're making 100% of. And in many cases, we have a guarantee, but then if they go above that, they make a percentage of the total
and
as
hey,
well.
if they go above that, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because then we're probably breaking even.
Yeah.
But we didn't have a lot of shows
that went above it.
That went above it.
That's true. And we had some that, really good musicians. Like the Traveling McCurrys come to mind. That
amazing.
Just great musicians. And we just, we ended up taking it in the shorts because we just couldn't get enough people to come out and buy that ticket. But I think got to learn from those experiences. And I think what we've learned is, at least in the Helena market, the way it exists today, now this may change as the population grows and people are coming from out of town and they're more like, yeah, let's go down. The
economy improves, hopefully, just gets a little more.
Things. Yeah. But is to try to kind of minimize those bigger ticketed events. Now, there's some people that would watch us and say, well, that's a bummer. There's going to be less. Yeah, there is. And that's just the fact of life, and we're going to try to fill that in with some good local talent.
But we're also we're trying Thursdays to try to make that local solo duos free shows. So free on Thursdays.
Yep.
It'll start at 7 and go to about 9:30, a little earlier.
We did that survey, and a lot of people said, hey, we like it on the school nights, weeknights, if you can start it earlier. So we'll do it at 7 o'clock.
So then with our ticketed shows in conjunction with Pub Station, we still have a few that we're kind of on average about once a month. It seems like
I think so.
And we'll see if we can continue that at that pace. And then I've been booking some touring bands, but just being really frank with them and saying, hey, this is where we're at. So a flat rate fee is going to work better.
Especially when they've never been through before, because we've learned the lesson too many times where they have really good numbers on Spotify or they got good numbers on, all the different social channels, and yet it just doesn't pull here. But the really cool thing is we've both seen bands that maybe didn't pull here real good the first time.
Right.
And the second time it was double that. The third time it was bigger. I mean, honestly, Laney Lou and the Bird Dogs is a classic example. The first time we had them here, it was years ago. But then the last time they left making more than most of the bands that we hired.
Right.
So we've never really looked at the live music as a way to make money.
Right.
We've always, you and I have loved live music and played music, and so we always wanted to support that, and we have, I think, coming up over 20 years. We started with that little stage in the tap room underneath the brew house, and that place only held like 40 people.
Man, when there were 45, 50 people, they were like,
we were packed.
Whoa, it's just jammed.
Yeah, I don't think we'd get too many bands to do a versus deal there.
No, probably not.
But at any rate, we've been supporters of live music for a long time, and I mean, we're proud of that. I mean, we're booking usually over 100 bands this year, way over 150 bands a year. And for doing that for 20 years, that equals a lot of bands. Now, a lot of those are the same bands, but it's still lots of nights of live music. And guess what? Other people have looked at that and said, oh, that seems like a pretty good business model.
Right.
And I just happened to see on one of the Instagram channels, I think it was Downtown Helena today or something, that all the live music, Monday there's live music, Tuesday I think was Silver Star. There's a lot of businesses.
It's great for bands, yeah.
Which is awesome. I think we were honestly a big part of that. And so I think it's just a matter of figuring out what makes sense, because we don't want to alienate our brewery customers, our taproom customers. And I think we've got some good ideas moving into the future that even on those limited nights where we do have a ticketed event, once a month or twice a month, that we can provide some space and an area where people could still come down and have a beer. So we'll keep an eye out. We're working on lots of changes and updates and upgrades and things. And I think that'll help, and just reducing the total number of times that you walk in and realize that you're going to have to pay $10 to $20 to $30 for something when you just came down for a beer and a pizza. Right.
That's going to be pretty limited. So with the even the touring acts, that most of them that have been booking now, it'll still be the $5. There's a couple that we'd booked that might be a $10, but nothing more than 10. But most of them now are at a $5, and then we're just sucking up the flat fee.
Yeah, and I think what a lot of people don't understand too is even at a $5 cover, and you look around and you do a count and you say, well, there's 50 people in here. Yeah, that's $250 that was made at the door. The band is going to be $500 to $800.
Right.
We pay our people fair wages, so the sound guy gets a fair wage, the door guy, the security people. So we really can't do a show for less than around $1,000, and we haven't even gotten into whether we bought a hotel for the band or they had food that we paid for or all their drinks.
Right.
And so we're never going to really cover, but it just helps subsidize, and we're willing to do that, and we've done that for years. But I really hope that people understand, if you walk in and it's $5, you're basically saying, okay, I will give the cost of one beer so that these 4, 5, 6, sometimes 7 or 8 musicians can get a little bit of money to keep their business going. And many of these people, that is their livelihood. Right. I mean, there's several local guys that are completely talented and do it as a part-time gig, but a lot of the ones you're booking now, they're in a van.
Right.
And so this is what they decided to do.
We're trying to keep a balance always between local musicians and even local bands, full bands and everything. And now some of these touring acts that we're just being brutally honest with and saying, hey, if we can help you fill the tank and we can keep you on the road, we can make it, if it's worth your while, but this is kind of where we're at, because we're not going to basically charge more than a $5 cover just to, until
it's proven, right?
Yeah.
And I think as we see bands accelerate their growth in the marketplace. And I mean, we've seen this even with some of the local bands today. Like, we know that there's certain bands that we can get that we just know we're going to have a solid turnout.
Right.
And so you can afford to pay them a little bit more and take that
Well, yeah,
risk.
and we're always going to have some ticketed shows.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're just trying to limit it. So our next one is in January.
Yep.
And coming back, drum roll.
Well, we actually might have two in January
What?
now. The one that we just talked about, if we want to talk about that one, which looks like it's going to happen. But the one that you're thinking of
Hell's Bells.
was Hell's Bells at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So there's also a really good possibility that on January 11th, we'll have Kenny Fiedler back. And he's been here a couple of times and really brought in a great crowd, good country guy. And so, yeah, I think that it would probably be no more than two in a month. And really, the beautiful thing about it is we have worked with enough bands and built a relationship with those bands, like the Cody Canadas of the world and Wade Bowen and those kind of bands that I think we have enough of those that if they just came through once a year or even every 18 months, that will be kind of our once a month ticketed show that people know what to expect. They know they're going to get a great show, and they're not kind of betting on an unknown, put it that way.
Well, I was really impressed with Wade Bowen and his band and when they came, and they did a deal that was basically based off the tickets sold. And a very, very low, I don't remember what it was, but relatively very low. And his was probably the largest production as far as personnel and the size of his bus and the number of staff that he had. And they were great to work with. They were super friendly. They put on an amazing show. And they said, yeah, we get it that we're not going to make as much the first time.
Yeah.
But we know that we just need to, come back again.
Yeah. A lot of these guys, I think we find it frustrating, but sometimes it's not that when you and I are there and there's nobody there that we even feel bad about the fact that we're losing money that night. We feel guilty that we're not providing a crowd to these unbelievably talented musicians.
Much smaller, just last Thursday, a local musician, extremely talented solo artist. Basically, there was just 5 or 6 people, throughout most of his set. And, I had that very same feeling. I said, as I chatted with him, I said, man, I feel bad.
Yeah.
I feel bad.
I mean, I wish, and I think we're trying to hit people at the points that they look at. I know we have thousands of people on our weekly email, so we try to make sure that we're just hitting the events going on and a link to them if you want more information. And if you're not on that email, please go to lctaproom.com. You can sign up for that weekly email just to know what's happening this week at the tap room and some of the upcoming shows as well. I mean, some of these, obviously have done well enough that they sold out. So we do want people to understand, like the Hell's Bells sold out last year. That means we don't have tickets available at the door.
Right.
So some of them you have to do that ticketed situation, or you just can't control the expectations, and you hate for someone to come down and not be able to get in.
Yeah. Well, on Thursday, I told our Dave, our sound tech extraordinaire, I said, man, we got to get more people in here, Dave. You're going to have to start mixing sound topless.
I'm sure he was all over that.
He kind of, I know, I don't think he was ready to do that, but maybe someone can start commenting to him that maybe if he would, you got a nice chest, Dave, but we can't see it, like that Seinfeld.
Yeah, so Hell's Bells January, and then February, Zoso always pulls in a great crowd. That's the Led Zeppelin tribute band. That's another example, a positive. The Doors tribute band, Mojo Rising, the first time they came, people hadn't heard of them. And then last time they were in just a few weeks ago, it was at least double. So those people that came, they came again and they told their friends about it. And I do think that Helena is that kind of community that they do rely on a lot of friends' recommendations, and we'll even see people get out their phones and start texting.
Right.
And then you'll see people starting to come in like, wow, this is special, something that's going on here tonight. So that's always exciting. And I think it's just trying to find that balance of what's going to make sense financially, what's going to continue to have that vibe of a tap room where you can come in and have a slice of pizza and a beer after work and not worry quite so much about, well, are they going to kick me out of here? I can tell you that in the future, we're going to do our darndest to eliminate any of those requirements for us to actually close. Because I think we've done a pretty good job over the years of kind of going table to table at the time that the band is actually, at 7.
The only thing about the larger shows, let's say we typically have to adjust the seating if it's 200 or more.
Yeah.
So the Caitlin Butt show on Sunday, it ended up being a nice turnout, close to 200. I think we got it. 180, maybe a little over 180 tickets. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it felt nice. But it felt nice because the staff has become very adept at knowing like how many tables to leave, how many chairs to leave. But there is a moment that we kind of have to either take a moment to say, well, either you got to get up and move, or let's clear it out for, go to the game room or whatever, and so the staff can have the freedom to reset for that show, because like
That's
the Clintons, and then also for our country guy from Canada, great.
Corb.
Yeah, Corb Lund.
Lund,
yeah, another sold out show. I mean, phenomenal show. And so both of those were standing room only. We had some seating for handicap, folks that needed it, but there's just not enough room. And the tickets say right on there, standing room only. I know people maybe don't read that as close, and they get
some people
frustrated.
Don't go to concerts at venues.
Right.
Most people do, but there are some that, they still kind of expect to have a seat. And I get the confusion because sometimes there are seats here. Well, that's because, unfortunately, we know there's not going to be that many people here tonight.
We're trying to offer as many seats as we can when possible. But if 500 tickets have sold, it's a sold out show.
Every seat's gone.
It's got to be gone.
Yeah.
There's just not enough room. It would cause too many issues.
Yep.
And
all those tables and everything.
Yep.
And that's the classic standing room only show.
Yeah. And if you do go to those types of venues, you understand it and you expect it. So
yeah, you just learn real quick that, hey, I'm lucky to have a spot.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're
going to set yourself up with some ice.
Oh yeah, I'll do a couple more ice in there. I do think that one thing that we have over a lot of the venues that you and I have gone to is we have a lot of places to at least put your drink.
Right.
I mean, we got beer rails all over the place. And so it's always nice just to have a kind of a place to hang.
It's really only in that when the group is like right in front of the stage and then back, because we do have we have the tables that are fixed to the floor. So you can, if you find one of those spots, you can lean up against that.
Yep. And then the railing upstairs,
all the way around, the railings on the side of the wall and around the sound booth on those shows is kind of blocked, so we have that walking path. But I guess the bottom line is that the tickets say standing room only.
Yeah.
But we're going to, based on the number of tickets sold, always provide as much seating as possible. So, when the doors reopen at 7, and I know it is a bummer to ask people to leave, but hopefully we're just now sending them into the game room.
Yeah,
so the staff
where they can
reset.
Enjoy a beer while we reset things.
And so then, and one of the things I think with and I did it for a couple folks, but on those ticketed shows, we should then go in that game room, and then anyone that has a ticket, just go ahead and scan them and move them back in, so they don't have to go back and get in line.
Right.
I did it for a couple folks, but
it reminds me of one of the kind of I guess you would call it secret tricks, like when you go to the knitting factory over in Spokane. Is if you go to that bar that's attached to it, like an hour and a half before the doors open. Once that bar fills up, they open that door from the bar into the knitting factory before the main door.
So you can get in and get your position. I think that's what what we should definitely work on and what we should do.
And I think,
shows coming.
we're, I guess, being transparent and say we're learning. We're trying to figure this thing out. It's been a fairly simple animal for a lot of years, but when we sat down after last year and looked at the numbers and realized it was a significant loss to the retail part of the business, and it didn't mean that the retail business lost money, but it meant that, wow, if you look at where your costs and where your revenues come from, it was not paying for itself at all. And so that's why we partnered and did some of these other shows, hoping that elevating the level of musician and more touring acts would bring some more folks out.
Yeah, kind of to give the community, obviously the rodeo that pretty much always does well when they, but everyone's just used to going to that.
Yep.
Helena doesn't really have a higher end live music venue. Maybe you go to the Civic Center for something now and again, but on a regular basis, obviously Great Falls has that, Bozeman has that, Missoula has that. So we were the thought process was provide that in Helena so people don't have to travel.
Yeah, and the people that do travel, Helena's pretty centrally located, so maybe we can get some people from Butte and Missoula and
we
Bozeman.
did on a couple different shows, shows, because you can look and see the zip code where people are coming from.
Another advantage of the online ticket sales.
Yeah, and so you could see when you were pulling people out of market, and so it was pretty cool. But
we had.
I think we just did it maybe too much.
Yeah, I think that was probably the thing that was the most significant, and the fact that a lot of them, we had been living in the world of $5 and $10 covers,
right?
And some of these were $30 tickets because that's the artist or their agent actually sets those parameters and based on
they set the pre-sales, they set the day of show sales,
Yeah. So the bottom line is I think we've learned a lot of great things, and we still have a strong commitment to live music. We are just forced to figure out a way to make it not quite as much of a loss from a revenue standpoint. And someday, if it could break even, that would be unbelievable, overall. But even if it doesn't, we're still committed to it because we're obviously still bringing people in on weeknights, like Thursday, and then might be looking at doing some stuff on Tuesday, some singer-songwriter stuff. So we're still going to be, and part of it is, let's face it, we invested a lot of money in live music. We've invested, well over $300,000 in that stage and that PA and the lights and all that stuff. And some of these artists, there's no other place in town unless they brought something in that would even comply with their requirements for the PA and the lighting and all that stuff. So, long term, I think it was still a great investment. Someday it will pay off is what I'm betting on.
Well, I just think, it's use it a little more sparingly, and hopefully people will begin to instead of getting overwhelmed. And part of it, frankly, was I think it got really busy at the time we started in June. So Alive at 5 had also started.
Yep.
So now you are managing that with, bringing bands in. So suddenly the Helena community is getting exposed to it, like bombarded with the groups we're bringing in, and then the Alive at 5 groups, and then it ended up where every other Wednesday that was at the tap room.
Yep.
So I think there was just overexposed maybe.
Yep.
And so
we're doing as long as we just sent out an email to last year's sponsors for Alive at 5. So if you for some reason were a sponsor and didn't get that, or you want to become a sponsor, we've already got commitments from a couple of them. And so once we reach that threshold of risk, then we are going to be announcing hopefully soon that we are doing Alive at 5 next year, and talk a little bit about some changes that we're going to make in it. But it's exciting. I think it's going to be another great summer.
Well, yeah, and that wasn't a topic we were even talking.
Yeah.
We were going to talk about. But as far as from the cost thing, it's really important, and it's the community should be very appreciative to the businesses that are contributing, because then that is, they're the ones that are bringing those bands in, or at least allowing for those bands to be brought in. And those bands get expensive.
Yeah.
And
there's just no way it would have happened last year. I mean, if we would have taken the chance and had no sponsors, it could have honestly been the thing that really caused the business to be in trouble, because it's a big commitment.
Right.
And I think people they go in a day what's real busy and just assume, wow, they must just be killing it, and don't really have a concept of, the $2,000 a week for the PA and the, $2,000 to $4,000 a week for bands and all of the other things that you just have to put into it.
You have to add security. You have to have extra staff because
crowd managers and
it was one of those weeks. 50% of the time it was at the park. So now you have to double staff. You have to staff the tap room, and you have to staff the event.
It takes 4 people a good 4 or 5 hours just to get everything from the brewery over there, set up, ready to go. I mean, this was, the first year of Alive at Fives that we let people had consistent credit card service during the Alive at Fives, and just tried to do everything we could to make it very efficient. And I think overall the feedback we got was overwhelmingly positive. People enjoyed it, and the weather didn't cooperate as much as it had the year before. So there was a couple of them downtown that unfortunately got it rained, and then the rain passed, and then those people were gone and didn't come back. But the few people that stayed still enjoyed it. So I think it's all about the balance, but I think that one, the community really gets behind, and that's exciting.
Right. Well, we also, we're Thursdays, we're trying to do solos, duos, all free shows. Fridays, sort of going forward, twice a month will be the beer bingo, right? Which people are loving.
Been incredibly popular. We give away a lot of beer, give away a lot of prizes, and the cool thing is we make a lot of money for nonprofits. I mean, I would say in the last several weeks, I've signed checks for well over $1,000 a week for those bingo parties.
That's great.
If you are a nonprofit, and we get emails all the time asking, can I do a pint night? Can I do that is our vehicle. Since we came out of COVID, we decided to switch over and do these bingo nights, and all of that bingo card money goes to the nonprofit.
Yeah.
And those have been incredibly successful. A lot of it just depends on the nonprofit and how well they get the word out to the people that care about their cause. Because not asking you to donate money, we're asking you to come down, play bingo, and have a beer.
Right.
And so it's not a hard thing to do. And so every other Friday we'll do that, and then we'll sneak in some live music, and there might be a ticketed show now and again on a Friday.
Thursday after Thanksgiving, or is it Thursday after the day after Thanksgiving? That's a Friday. I'm sorry, that's a Friday.
Yeah.
So that's going to be our first. We're going to try a little DJ action.
DJ party. Yeah.
We're going to go 8 until midnight. So also trying to look for some different like beverages to sell that you can sell. I sampled a couple different ones that
nice.
Casey had
awesome.
for me, and it's amazing how they can make wine-based stuff that tastes more like a hard liquor.
Okay, yeah. And that's always something that, especially when you get in that later night crowd, and a lot of the younger crowd, let's face it, their taste buds and their choices are just a little bit different. And
Right. And, it's a lot of people will tend to want to switch over to something that tastes a little different.
Look at us.
Twist my arm. Yeah. I don't discriminate. So, and then we're going to try that again in December. And then if the community seems to like that and respond to it, then maybe we're looking at doing at least the spring on Fridays. Now, or a Friday a month or whatever. We haven't really talked about that. So we'll have to kick it around, whether it's one Friday a month or what you were thinking. But
and speaking of which, this probably come out by this Friday, we've got the Mojo mixtape guys coming back to town, and then you got 4th Street Blues Project or 49th Street Blues Project.
From Great Falls.
Great Falls, okay. On Saturday. So we don't get a ton of blues through. So if you're a blues fan, really the best thing is, again, to keep an eye on the email, or just jump out to the website and just say, hey, who's at the tap room, and is there a cover charge, or what time does it start?
I would encourage you. For me, like, I get the emails, if I have time, I look at it. But a lot of times, you're busy doing something else when that email pops up. So for me, it's like, hey, when I'm thinking about what I'm going to do, if I want to go out that night, or what am I thinking about for the weekend, it's pretty easy just to jump on. You know that Lewis Clark Tap Room is an active venue, so just jump on it and see what's happening that Thursday, Friday, Saturday,
or even follow the Lewis Clark Tap Room on Instagram. I mean, that gets a constant feed of what's coming up along with Facebook. You know, I think sometimes there's a lot of folks that have migrated into different ways of consuming stuff.
Well, and that's where, to me, sometimes it's just a little bit, overwhelming.
Yeah.
So it's like when I want to go look, I'll just go look.
Yeah.
I look at different venues in different places that I know I've gone to before. I know they always have events, and I get emails from them too that I don't look at.
And and that's honestly why we're trying to hit all angles. We actually have found a pretty decent response of just the ads that we're running in the tap room, kind of on the side TVs when there's nothing else going on.
Yeah, I said that, man. We got to be advertising to the folks in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are the people that are most likely going to be interested in it. And then just recently, more and more printed posters, and we have, of course, we got the golf league, the fall league going on the simulator right now. And we have posters back there in that golf sim area, and I've had 2 or 3 comments from people like, "Oh, you're getting Hell's Bells here?" It's like, well, yeah, it's been on all the other, but sometimes it needs to be like staring you right in the face, and then, oh, I'm going to get a ticket right now.
Yeah.
So we're trying every which way but loose to get the information out.
Well, except we don't have Dave's shirt off yet.
Yeah, we just got to work on that.
That'll be an emergency. That's a break glass
tassels for him.
That's a break glass.
You can't have the exposed breast.
No, emergency break glass right there. If we go to that extreme, but that's almost like getting out the nuclear codes. Poor Dave.
Yeah, no, we're excited. I think overall, as long as we're willing to adapt and we listen to the customers, and you're never. Everybody's not going to agree all the time, because even in that survey we did, it was an amazing amount of people that were passionate about starting at 8 and starting at 7, and there was almost an equal number.
Right.
But on the weeknights, it certainly made sense, and so we're just going to continue to do that and keep plugging along and keep supporting live music the best we can. And we just hope that people will not only look to see what's going on, and instead of sitting on the couch watching TV, come on out, have a beer, and enjoy some great live music. Especially when it's many of our local folks, musicians, like on a Thursday, and there are local bands playing too. So I don't want to. Yeah. But man, most Thursdays are free, have been, and are going to continue to be, most of them. And so if you can just swing by and throw some love towards that, a local person trying to be out there playing some music, difference. Man, it really does. And some of those folks will also throw a tip jar out, and because we've been really open with them. It's like, hey, this is what we can afford for these nights, especially if we're not charging anything. We still got those fixed costs that we're going to have to pay for. Right. It's okay to spend $5 to listen to some great live music. I think that's one of the messages I want to get people. Well, we've been doing live music in this community for a long time, and then before we started doing it, we were going out to different venues. Consumers of live music, but we've seen an evolving history of it. You'll see a place that'll start having it, and then they don't have it anymore, and so. I won't name any places specifics, but we've just seen that over the years. Yeah. Because it is hard at times to make money at it. And when you look at it and go, well, if I didn't have a band, I'd still have X people in here, and I'd probably make this, and I wouldn't have to have an extra staff person. So or people, people start doing that math. And not to mention the time that you put in now just booking bands. I mean, people kind of assume, I think, oh, someone just calls and says, can I play next week? And doesn't realize plus just the amount of emails back and forth. If you're communicating with people, it's not going to get settled in one email. Yeah. It's going to take numerous emails. Now, if they played there before, normally it's a lot easier. But then they got to go. So they got to go, hey, what dates do you have? We're interested. Here's kind of the dates I have. Then they got to go to their band members, and if it takes them a while, because I know having a band, I had a band for many years, and had a couple different ones. Some of these guys are in 3 bands. Yeah, it's like herding cats, and then you go, then they come back with a date, and you go,
sorry, that one's filled. Because you don't try to I don't try to put it out to too many bands at the same time. But what I've learned is I've got to put it out to a few because, at least 2 or 3, because otherwise we get to a point that we almost can't get it filled.
Yeah.
And so,
and you like to have that consistency.
Right.
I think that's important.
And now, for some of the local bands and probably because of the reach of this podcast, some of the regional and
absolutely,
national acts that would be watching this, we are booking farther out because we were limiting our bookings to, we started at 30 and then we,
more and more ticketed events.
We were doing more and more ticket events and leaving that free for Sean to try to negotiate with different groups and fill those dates.
Yeah.
But instead now we're filling them, and then we'll work around with our other dates.
Yeah, and I think, most of these bands or artists that we're filling them with understand that if we have a huge thing that gets dropped in our lap, an opportunity, and someone like a Cody Canna just, hey, I'm going to be coming through in April. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to ask this guy to move because we got
or they'll
national
open for him or whatever. And if they're, especially if they're local or kind of around here, that's never going to be a problem. And we've never had a problem with that yet. So
yep. No, I think we got a clear path, and I think if there's just the primary message is, we're going to have less ticketed events, so there'll be less times that you show up and you can't just come in and have a beer. And if it is, it might be a $5 cover because it's a great band. And we just encourage people to say, hey, live music is worth $5 to keep around and support that. And there'll be plenty of times you could get it for free as well.
Well, and I know we have some time before this, but what's New Year's Eve shaping up to be this year?
It's pretty similar situation as last year. 10 years gone. Always brings a great crowd. We've got some exciting prizes we're going to be giving away. We stepped it up for Halloween, giving away a little over $500 in cash and prizes, and we're not only going to have all the the noisemakers and all the fun stuff and a free toast of champagne at midnight, but we're also looking at doing some door prizes where people can put a ticket in and select something, and if they want to put more tickets in one or whatever, and then we'll do that drawing, and so there'll be another reason that you might be able to leave with something cool and start the new year with something brand new.
Nice. And you may not know yet. I know sometimes holiday hours are different because you think, well, you want to be home Thanksgiving or Christmas, but then there'll be employees that'll say, man, I'd really like to work. I don't really have anything going on.
Sure.
And so have you got that settled, hashed out yet?
Thanksgiving, we will be closing early, 5 o'clock.
Okay.
And then let's see, what was Christmas Eve? We closed early at 5 o'clock. So we still have some growler fills and stuff going on, but and then Christmas Day we're closed, and that's really the only day we're fully closed. We close early a couple of the other days.
Nice. Well, Max, it was fun to get back together.
We got to get this saddle warmed up again and get back in, and each week we can do little snippets and talk about what's going on that week. And we got some exciting stuff going on the beer side of things, too, that we can be talking about.
That would be fun.
Some new stuff coming out for next spring and all sorts of fun stuff. So, this has been a great way to kind of clear the air on live music anyway. And it was good to get back in the saddle.
I know. Knock the rust off for a little podcast.
Absolutely.
Well, cheers, Max.
Cheers.